Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Graham with the City of Olympia, as well as co-facilitator for Business Inspection Group. And I'm here today with Colleen, Griffith, and Evan Dobrowski, with both who work with Department of Ecology. Evan as Lead Industrial Stormwater Inspector and Colleen as Municipal Stormwater Permit Planner. Together, they bring a full perspective of the mutual goals of the MS4 Permit Source Control Program and the Industrial Stormwater General Permit. Today, we'll get into answering some FAQs that many folks within stormwater permittees across the state have raised regarding the MS4 Permit Source Control Program and whether or not it overlaps within the Industrial Stormwater General Permit. So first, I think we're going to start with Colleen.
Thanks, Jeremy. So today, I'm just going to be giving a super brief high-level review of the main points of the source control for existing development permit requirement for the Municipal Stormwater General Permit. It's currently required for the Phase 1 and the Western Washington Phase 2 permittees. As the Phase 1s have had this program in their permit previously, their programs are established and they're just continuing to implement the requirements this term. So this overview is going to include some deadlines and milestones that are really specific to the Western Washington Phase 2 permittees who are in the process of starting this program during this permit term. Next slide. So there's two primary deadlines to keep in mind with regard to the source control program, August 1st of 2022, and then 5 months later, January 1st of 2023. By August 1st of 2022, each Phase 2 will need to adopt and make effective an ordinance or other enforceable document that gives them authority to require the application of source control BMPs at existing businesses. And this is met by using applicable source control BMPs from the Ecology Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington or an approved Phase 1 program. Jurisdictions also need to put together their inventory list of all the potential pollution generating businesses that fall into categories identified in Appendix 8 of the Western Washington Phase 2 permit. And this inventory list should be updated at least once per permit term. Next slide. So now to the meat of the program. This is where you'll potentially have the overlap of your work with the ISGP if a site also has the ISGP permit. So beginning no later than January 1st of 2023, permittees are required to implement their inspection program. So first you'll provide information about source control and associated BMPs to your sites on your inventory list for those that you have a business address for. You can do that all at once or spread it out over the course of the permit cycle as you're beginning to actually conduct your inspections. Of your entire inventory list, you're required to document inspections for 20% of the inventory total each year. But this does not mean that we expect you to inspect every business on your list over the 5-year permit cycle. You can prioritize your inspections more or less how you want, depending on the specific needs and priorities of your jurisdiction. And Ecology does consider follow-up visits, denied entry visits, and complaint inspections, which you're required to respond to all of those, all towards your 20%. So now into compliance. While we would like all businesses to eagerly comply with our requirements, we know that isn't always the case. So at the time that you begin your inspection program, you also need to have in place an escalating enforcement strategy that your inspectors are trained to follow. And Ecology would, of course, hope that you're able to succeed through education and technical assistance first, but we just want to make sure you have that built-in enforcement authority as a backstop. So make sure you're documenting your inspections and enforcement efforts and communicate with your permit planner if you are hitting the end of your enforcement options and the site is still refusing to come into compliance. At that point, the permit does allow for you to submit what's called a non-emergency referral to Ecology. But since we're talking about the overlap with the ISGP permit here, if this is a permitted facility, it's likely that if they aren't complying with this local source control requirements and having illicit discharges over and over, they're also out of compliance with their ISGP permit, in which case you've probably already notified Ecology through ERTS and the ISGP inspector is already in the loop. So now Evan Dobrowski is going to talk a bit about some of the source control requirements and corrective actions that are specific to the Industrial Stormwater General Permit. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. So regarding the industrial stormwater permit, the main requirement in the permit is sampling. Ecology requires 4 stormwater samples a year to be submitted to Ecology through the DMR system and the water quality web portal. Those are all publicly accessible via Paris as well. So everybody can see those if they know the permit number or the name of the permit. Stormwater samples are required to meet benchmarks or they hit level corrective actions. I'll talk about those in just a minute. Ecology inspectors look for compliance of permit conditions as well. So, we're looking for things like closed dumpsters, catch basin inserts, anything that's in their stormwater pollution prevention plan or required in the industrial stormwater general permit. We do also require at some sites change requirements. So we may require them to change their SWIP, the stormwater pollution prevention plan. And ecology inspectors require facilities to meet all the permit conditions as well, which require certain best management practices. So regarding the level 1 corrective actions, if a facility hits 1 benchmark exceedance for 1 specific parameter, they're required to do an operational source control BMP and an extra site inspection. So that's called a level 1 inspection of their site, where they're verifying that all the aspects of the site SWIP are being implemented on the site effectively. 2 benchmark exceedances in their samples for 1 specific parameter would equate to a structural source control BMP. So that may be changing out pavement if their pavement is all cracked up, or installing covers over certain areas of the facility. A level 3 corrective action is what a lot of facilities don't like to hit, because that requires an engineering report and a treatment BMP. Now, an engineering report isn't always required if they apply for a waiver and they are installing a treatment BMP that doesn't need to be sized for their facility. So there are a few of those that are out there. And then level corrective actions, again, are parameter specific. So if you hit copper benchmark 1 time and then you hit a benchmark exceedance for zinc, you're not in a level 2, you're in a level 1 for both copper and zinc. Now, Jeremy will be asking Colleen and I some questions that have been collected by permittees across the state about how to best align efforts and identify roles and responsibilities between the source control of the MS4 permit and the industrial stormwater general permit. So take it away, Jeremy.
Thanks. So the first question is, MS4 permittees are concerned about having city, county, or ecology inspectors dropping in on sites too often.
That's a good question. Ecology covers all the counties in Washington state. We do have several regional offices. So we break ourselves up according to those regional offices. It's very unlikely that there would be an issue between ecology and municipal inspector running into each other or inspecting a site one right after the other. Not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not extremely likely. An example of when it would be likely is if there was a complaint regarding the site that raised to the level of both the municipal staff going out there and a permit violation under ecology. I have been out personally on sites where they have been very upset that an inspector just came out from the city. And then I asked for the inspection report and I find out that this inspector just came out a year and a half ago. So we look at that and we say, well, great, a year and a half is a very long time between inspections because sites can change on a daily basis. So we don't see this as a major issue or upsetting concern for facilities, although we do hear it from time to time.
When a complaint is received, who responds or investigates when multiple jurisdictions are involved?
I think that can go kind of 2 ways. So think of an example. So let's say you have a spill at a gas station in city A and it flows into the storm system that then connects to city B's storm system. So right now, just in that scenario, that's really an MS4 permit issue only. And the Ecology MS4 permit manager and both permitted jurisdictions are going to get notified through ERTS of that discharge. And if the spill originated in city A, then they're responsible for getting that discharge stopped. And then city A and B sort of work together to figure out who's going to finalize the cleanup and do that. But if the spill comes from an industrial site and it originates at that permitted facility and it discharges out into an MS4 jurisdiction, stormwater system, I'm going to get the referral, but Evan is also. So while the city has a permit requirement to inspect 100% of the sites identified through credible complaints, the ISGP inspector may or may not be able to respond to the site as readily as the local agencies. But if the city wants to coordinate a site visit with Ecology, you can always contact us. You can contact me or the ISGP inspector, and we can work on coordinating that together.
Who does the business ultimately answer to? Is it both agencies or one?
So businesses answer to both. They need to meet all their requirements under the Ecology permit. They also have separate requirements and often more stringent requirements under city or county codes, and they need to meet those stringent requirements. However, it is the responsibility of the city or county to enforce those local codes to be more stringent than Ecology's Industrial Stormwater Permit. Example is there are some cities that have very specific requirements on BMPs that are allowed to be used and that aren't in the city specifically. And Ecology cannot enforce those. They're not in the Industrial Stormwater Permit, only that a BMP is required to be used. So in that instance, the city can certainly let us know that that is a BMP this site needs to use. And we can then tell that site, hey, this city is telling us that you need to use this. And we'll be looking for that, but I can't remember every single city's requirements. So keep that in mind when you're out on facilities.
When should jurisdictions involve the Ecology ISGP inspector? When the jurisdiction is investigating an illicit discharge or source control issue?
So I think this actually has to kind of take a step back, because if you're aware of an illicit discharge that's leaving a site and coming into your MS4, you're required by the MS4 permit under the G3 condition to notify Ecology within 24 hours. So if it's at an Ecology ISGP permitted site, you just need to make sure that when you are calling in this illicit discharge to Ecology, you're letting the ERTS coordinator know that this is an ISGP site. And that way it gets referred to the proper inspector. And even better, provide your own contact information so the inspector can then get in touch with you if they want, if there's an interest in that potential coordination, so that you don't have in a complaint response situation, coordinating that response could be more beneficial and less annoying to the site if you can show up together or coordinate, okay, you'll go out and you'll report back to me what you find and such like that. If you're not sure if the site is a permitted facility, a good way to start is to look up or try to look up the facility in Ecology's Permit and Record Information System, more commonly known as PERIS. This is a public database. And if you aren't finding what you're looking for there and you're just kind of now wanting general information about a site, you can always contact the ISGP inspector directly. But again, if an actual discharge is occurring and entering your MS4 from a facility, you need to report that per your G3 protocols.
So how does Ecology want municipal permittees to contact them? Through ERTS, regional control, or email directly?
So this builds a bit on the last response, and it depends again on what the contact is for. So as we just kind of went over, if there's an illicit discharge and you're reporting directly to Ecology for your G3, the initial communication should be through the ERTS reporting system. Because if you email or leave a voicemail for staff about illicit discharges, it's just not always a reliable or efficient method, because we might be out of the office for one reason or another. Evan could be on site inspections for 2 or 3 days and not be checking his, desk voicemail, or I might be out sick for 3 days and nobody's checking my inbox. So always make sure you're notifying if there's an issue, to notify the ERTS hotline, because that's always manned by someone. And then once a report is in, though, communications regarding follow-up on investigations is typically done through email or phone with the ecology planners or the inspectors directly. In our Northwest region, our ERTS coordinator will enter follow-ups that permittees send to her directly. She'll enter that follow-up in the ERTS database, but I don't know if that's just something that she does or if that's all ERTS coordinators. So just making sure your information gets to someone who will put it into the database as follow-up is important.
Let's see. So the next question is, what is the best way to request an update to industrial permit SWIP? Like, for example, if you need to include a new sample location at a discharge point. Oh, did I miss one?
For purposes of time, I think we edited a slide out.
We edited a slide out. Okay. Is there an easy way to, for a municipality to track if their jurisdiction has facilities that are permitted under the ISGP?
So again, this is something that the Public Paris database can help with to some extent. We do not have a way that a permit is issued and the headquarters permit administrators notify the locals. That's not a thing that's built into any kind of notification system. But we did find, we've been doing a lot of database testing for different functions for the MS4 permit. And I did sort of play around with this. And for a city, you can search the Public Paris database for industrial stormwater general permits and then put in your city. And so some portion of those addresses might be in an unincorporated portion of your city, but it could at least help you sort of start identifying the ISGP permitted facilities within your boundaries or close to that. For counties, it's a little less helpful because you can still use that technique of searching for all ISGPs in that county, but you're going to get everything in the county, including what's in incorporated cities. So not just your unincorporated MS4 permit covered area. So it's a little less helpful for county searches. But in terms of like building your inventory, which is larger than just ISGP facilities, I have talked with permittees where their jurisdiction and they don't manage the business licenses at like the local level. And they've been utilizing the State Department of Revenue website for getting those business license lists. So that's where I would start with that.
Does Ecology want a heads up if a municipality sees a permitted site that is in cruddy shape or appears to be out of compliance with the permit?
I'll take that one. Yes, please let us know. You should also be requiring the site to clean up under your source control program to reduce the potential of an MS4 impact in the future. Per the MS4 permit, phase 2 should adopt an ordinance or other enforceable document by August 1st of 2022, and by January 1st of 2023, you must start implementing your inspection program and have a progressive enforcement policy in place that requires sites to comply with stormwater requirements from your ordinance. So the answer is yes, but also follow up kind of on your own end as well.
Thanks. What criteria requires a business to apply for an ISGP?
Under the Industrial Stormwater General Permit, there's the NAICS codes that we look at. However, when we're on site, we also look at what specific activities they're doing. And if those activities more represent another NICS code, we will require them to apply under that NAICS code. And you can look at the Industrial Stormwater Permit and see all those NAICS codes on our website.
With reference to the MS4 permit though, and the categories in your Appendix 8, there is some overlap with ISGP NAICS codes, but we also are asking that inventory to look at a larger group than just the ISGP type facilities. So for example, we have, gas station service providers on our inventory list that we want you to consider, and those would not have an ISGP. So for your source control list, still refer to Appendix 8.
How should a municipality proceed if it recognizes a site or facility that appears to be operating without an ISGP, but they probably should?
Yeah, so reach out to your local ecology inspector if you know who that is. In the Northwest Regional Office, you can reach out to me. You can also submit it via ERTS, but it may take longer to get to the inspector, and it depends on the ERTS coordinator how they will reach out to us, if it will be through a complaint system or if it will just be a connecting you to your local industrial inspector. And then, of course, if there's an actual illicit discharge, you follow your normal protocols and report that as an illicit discharge through an ISGP covered site.
Do the ecology inspectors coordinate internally with the NPDES stormwater permit writers and permit managers?
Yes, we all coordinate with everyone. It's a lot of phone calls and meetings. So we are respectively coordinating with our own permit writers. So me with the MS4 permit writers and Evan with the ISGP permit writers. And we also coordinate with each other when we do have sites that kind of cross paths. And so, yes, there's all of that going on. And then I, as your permit manager, can also help coordinate your local inspectors with an ecology inspector if that's needed as well.
So it looks like we have probably some time for some follow-up questions as well. It looks like here the absolute do's and don'ts. So make sure you do follow your permit requirements, of course, and don't ignore your permit. Oh, I guess the question is what should we follow up as far as with permit requirements?
Yeah, I think there was a general question about what are the big do's and don'ts, and it was, well, do
Right.
follow it and don't ignore it.
Yeah.
About as simple as you can get.
So here we have whether or not there's some memorable moments that you've had when you're out in the field, if there's a lesson that you've learned or something that you'd like to share.
And then I think we have one more slide. I wanted to provide some permittee resources to the audience that's watching. Evan, if you can move the slide forward one. There you go. So for permittees who are looking for some help, I just wanted to quickly point out that there's also resources to help you kind of get your source control program requirements, underway. So Jeremy is a member of the regional group called BIG, the Business Inspection Group, and that's a great information resource. And there's also the Hazardous Waste Program at Ecology that has a partnership called Pollution Prevention Assistance Partnership, formerly the Local Source Control Partnership. And MS4 permittees can all apply to be in that program. I think the planners actually sent out an email notifying everyone about that application window opening a couple weeks ago. I think it just closed a couple days ago, actually. And then lastly, I really wanted to point out one of the current SAM projects that's starting right now. So the vast majority of permittees pay into a regional collection fund called SAM, which is Stormwater Action Monitoring, and to meet their water monitoring and assessment requirements of their permit. So this permit term, the Washington Stormwater Center, our lovely hosts, they're doing a SAM project that's developing a bunch of concrete tools, and I've listed a couple of them up on the slide there. And so this isn't their entire list of deliverables. There's actually a lot of things they're doing, but I tried to include some of the more like directly usable items for permittees. So they're going to have a list of agencies with online resources. They're going to create a guidance, a source control inspection guidance manual, and they're going to have 4 trainings. And then they're going to post those trainings and the curriculum on their website. And these are all kind of going to be, they're going to try and time them with the permit requirements as they come up too. So I just wanted to make that known, and we can leave that slide up while we finish answering some audience questions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Colleen. And then also, I just wanted to let folks know, as I had read a question that we had pulled, there's a number of more questions that we also have come up with within the business inspection group, and we'll also be kind of providing that and sending that out to the business inspection group itself, and then also including that with the source control guidance manual that gets that's being developed now currently. So we do have a few questions online here on the chat, and I'll go ahead and just kind of ask these. It looks like Catherine asked, are there permit conditions related to state waste discharge regulations that are enforceable under the ISGP but not under the NPDES MS4 permit, since the ISGP is a combined permit but the MS4 permit is not?
I can answer part of that question. So the ISGP lists state waste discharge, but basically the aspect in the ISGP that is state waste is no wastewater discharges are allowable. So to actually have a state waste discharge permit, you have to have an individually written permit, which is not an industrial stormwater general permit. I'm not sure how that relates to the MS4, and I'll turn it over to Colleen to further answer that question if necessary.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be a whole lot of help off the top of my head. I mean, as Evan said, state waste discharge permits are individually written permits, and the MS4 permit isn't going to be involved in enforcement of a state waste discharge permit unless it's somehow like entering the MS4 first, and then on its way to wherever it's going to be discharging the water to. So that's going to be a very site-specific question, and I don't really have a general answer for that.
I have another question here from Mark. Looks like, so can cities write their ordinances to reduce regulatory burden and business confusion? For example, if a business is in compliance with the industrial permit, then they automatically meet city ordinance requirements and do not need to apply for a city permit.
I think those are two different things. I mean, they aren't applying for a city permit to be inspected by the MS4 permit. So they can be in compliance if it's an industrial stormwater regulated facility and they're in compliance with their ISGP, then I think that as a city, you could probably, make some assumption that they're going to be more or less in compliance if your local codes are in no way different from what the ISGP requires, I guess. But yeah, I mean, they're not applying to the city to get an MS4 permit that you inspect them. Like a gas station is not going to get a permit for you to come out and inspect them under your MS4 permit. You just will be doing that because they are one of the pollution generating or potential pollution generating businesses identified on your source control inventory list.
Great, thanks. And I'm just going to quickly ask this last question, and hopefully and then I think we're pretty much done. In general, have you perceived that the permittees for Ecology anticipate needing to hire additional inspectors to cover these sites? I'm not sure by which sites they're asking.
In general, our If the question is asking if permittees are needing to hire additional FTEs to manage the source control inspections, some yes and some no. I think it's, again, very jurisdiction specific. Some smaller municipalities may not have many businesses to begin with, and so they don't need to hire an FTE. Others might have a lot. And the ones that do have a lot often have also already been doing some version of this business inspection. And so adding in a couple, an additional checklist to their inspections that are already happening is less of a lift than, we've never gone to a business and we have nothing and we need to start from scratch. And so every jurisdiction, again, is going to be a little different there.
That's it.